Hi there. I'm Jacob Austin, exotic middle-class travel destination agent. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you. Let's say you come to someone like me and say, we want to take a trip. We want to see a wonder of the world. We want to party. We want to just get away from it all completely for a little bit. We want to go to a place with an interesting cultural history that has resulted in a distinct style that has now helped it drive its place on the world stage. You know what I would do? Immediately come back with an answer. Brazil. You want cultural history? Cool, we can handle that. Indigenous peoples in the Amazon have been around for forever, even if European colonization has really hit them hard. Along with colonization came slavery, of course. And as you'd expect with slavery, the history's bad. As a matter of fact, they were the last country in the West to abolish slavery. While it was a somewhat progressive road to abolition, it took them until 1888. It took them so long that Atlanta had already mostly been rebuilt after the Civil War. South Carolina had been electing black congressmen for nearly 2 decades, and Abraham Lincoln had already been secretly resurrected and was hunting vampires at a legendary level. Brazilian slaves actually had genuine paths to freedom that American slaves didn't have, including much more success as runaways. Runaway and freed slaves often formed their own successful communities called maroons, even in urban areas. In Brazil, these were specifically called quilombolas, which is a fun word to say, but also makes me, for some reason, think of like a 70s detective show set in the tropics. Anyway, in these quilombolas, Afro-Brazilians were able to practice their religions, express their traditions, support themselves and each other, no matter how poor. At their peak, some settlements would even have tens of thousands of citizens. They would be politically autonomous, no matter how organized loosely those people may be, while still operating under control of the more recognized actual government. In fact, in the current constitution that was ratified in 1988, some quilombolas were still around, and that constitution granted them like actual political acknowledgement and land rights. Do these sorts of self-made, random, kind of ramshod communities sound familiar to you? They should, because they've morphed over time to be something you've seen in every movie set in Brazil you've ever watched. We call them favelas, and think of them as these incredibly colorful and cheery slums, but they are spiritual descendants of those slave maroons. They're self-built, self-designed, self-sufficient neighborhoods that are often not all that safe. They are where impoverished, traditionally African-descended people live with all the issues of poverty. That makes the way they've grown that much more impressive. See, architecture students from Penn State actually did a study on the buildings themselves, the regions, the neighborhoods, and found they've got naturally great design principles. They studied these buildings to see how new urban development can learn from them and make their designs more robust and functional in dense areas. These places, they adapt to the needs of the people, something any city planner would be thrilled to have happen naturally. I even read one person who talked about the idea that things just kind of are concrete one day and steel the next. Something is a flower shop one day and a restaurant a week later, because it caters to the needs of the people. In fact, a colleague at a travel agent of mine based in Santa Catarina refers to their local favela as something along the lines of chaos with structure. And urban designers of the present are trying to learn how they can take that structure in a way that needs less chaos to reach its peak. Many favelas only have 1 or 2 real ways in and out. But within them, there are roads that are far-reaching and serve their purposes well, even though, like I said, the purpose of a building may change over and over again. The students of that Penn State study described the streets as fingers on a hand that are capable of holding different sorts of parks, businesses, and homes. From the outside, we may see a jumbled mess, like a Fast and Furious car chase. But really, these places are actually great examples of how to make a community work for its people, which is also, ironically, kind of how the family in the Fast and Furious movies have been able to gain such a broad and dedicated fan base. The idea of Brazil being the home of Carnival, you did say you wanted to party, right? In these wild times even extends to our sanitized version of the favelas. But in few ways is a self-expression of Brazilians, which is often predominantly done in ways that accentuate the Afro side of Afro-Brazilian culture and history, more evident than through soccer. Names like Pele and Neymar are known around the world, even household names in America, and belong to stylish and fantastic Afro-Brazilian soccer stars. In fact, the first Afro-Brazilians played for the big clubs early in the 1910s, barely 20 years removed from the abolition of slavery. Even then, though, mixed teams were banned after Vasco da Gama became the first integrated team to win a title in 1923. Along with capoeira, sports were seen as a way to celebrate some Afro heritage in Brazil by the 1930s. Citizens pushed to see a more representative team, and after finishing third in the 1938 World Cup, general society noticed more and more the influence and contribution of Afro-Brazilians. In many ways, this path of acceptance and an ideal racial democracy in Brazil followed the same path as it did in soccer. Gilberto Frei looked at the qualities of African-descended players and said what they're bringing to the team, what they bring to the nation are good things. But he also still was looking at them through the same racial stereotypes that African players face today. It's power, it's speed, there's a lightness to it, they're modern physical specimens. In modern times, Pele ushered in a new era of soccer to the world on the whole, leading the Brazilian team to multiple World Cup victories. Today, Neymar plays and is a giant star that carries the mantle for Brazilian soccer. In between them, though, the favelas brought two of the most beloved players of all time, Ronaldo El Fenomeno and Ronaldinho Gaucho. Both are Afro-Brazilians who came from these slums in Rio and Porto Alegre, respectively, and wowed the world for years with their style and their fun and their charisma on the way to winning a World Cup together. So, a place with an interesting cultural history that stretches back centuries, with connective tissue to their most public cultural expression today. And it all happens in the shadow of that wonder of the world you wanted to see, where Christ the Redeemer will look down on you disapprovingly as you party in the streets for Carnival. Sounds like you want to go to Brazil. Let me know when, and we'll book those tickets.